In this video, I show you how I fix some shoddily built deck stairs to make them safe and up to code. Here's a quick run through of how they are currently built. The bottom of the stringers for the second flight attached to this ledger board here. They're connected with screws to the side of that piece bolted to the front of the joist. That piece on the front of the joist is held on the screws directly to the joist. The top of the stringers for the first flight of stairs are attached the same way, as well as the top of the stringers on the second flight of stairs. Here's another view of the first flight. Here are how the stairs are mounted. There are screws screwing into the end grades of the treads, which is dangerous. Also, the posts at the first flight of stairs are not secured to anything on the concrete, so there is zero lateral support for the stringers. For the first step, I'm just going to remove the treads. With all the treads removed, I've put them on sawhorses and I'm going to put a fan on them. While the treads are drying, I'm going to go cut out the 9.5 inch long 2x4s that will support each side of the treads. Treads dry, I'm going to belt sand them now. I have a 36 grit belt on there. I'm only aiming to level all of these ridges and these cracks just to make a flat surface. I don't want any trip hazards, so I need to smooth all this out. This will also get rid of all this dirty algae and mold and stuff that's here, as well as give a nice clean surface for the paint to adhere to. Since I already have the treads removed, I decided to apply the stain to them. Here I am removing the stringers. This is the stringer hanger being reattached. I'm using the recommended fasteners from Simpson Tie Strong. Couldn't access the top tread because it was built before the rest of the structure, so now I don't have enough room to get a screwdriver or anything in there, so I had to cut it. And this is attaching the ledgers on each side of the tread. I'm basically pre-drilling 2 holes for screws in the ledgers, lining them up to the tread, making sure they are level, measuring a set distance from the previous tread, and then attaching them to the solid stringer. To attach the treads to the ledgers, I'm just using normal screws, 4 screws total per tread. This is cutting the bottom of the existing stringer so I can attach the joist hanger to. I'm pre-drilling the holes into the old wood and attaching with the screws for the double shear connectors or 2.5 inch strong tie fasteners. However, I use number 10 screws. I wouldn't suggest doing this. In this case, the screws are more than strong enough and I'm not worried about them failing. Here's the second flight of stairs done. To attach the risers, I'm making sure they're equally spaced on each side, and I'm just putting 1 screw into the existing ledgers. And this is where I move the existing post, which is not secured to anything, and I'm installing a secured post into the concrete. Since these were installed in a certain order, I had to cut because I couldn't remove it. I'm cutting the second stringer to be parallel with the other stringer. I've lined up where I need to drill the hole in the concrete. I'm just using a normal masonry bit. I started with a 1/4 inch, then a 3/8, and then a 1/2 inch bit. The way the wedge anchor works is you hammer it in, and then when you attach the nut and start torquing it down, it'll pull it outward. The bottom is a wedge shape, so it forces outward into the concrete and securely attaches. Here I'm making sure the post is vertical. It's slightly too long, so I'm cutting off the very edge of it. Now I need to drill the through hole for the 1/2 inch bolt to go through. This secures the stringer to the post. The code calls for 2 bolts per post. I'm only showing putting in 1 here. Now to attach the post to the anchor, I'm using the same 1.5 inch Simpson tie strong fasteners. Since the original handrails were installed centered to the stringers, I had to offset the post, and I also had to put a 2x4 to the left of the post to make sure that there's enough wood for the rail to sit on. And this is the finished product after I cleaned everything up. This is how the current deck code is written. The stringer sit attached to the rim joist via a hanger like this. For supporting the treads, there are 2 different options. One option is to use a cut stringer. The code allows for a maximum of 18 inches between the stringers. The second option allows for 2x4s as ledgers that attach to a solid stringer and support the treads on each side. The code allows for posts directly on footings. For the treads and risers, the code allows for a 10-inch minimum width with a 7 3/4 maximum rise. There's also a 3/4 to 1 1/4 nosing allowed. All of these cannot deviate by more than 3/8 of an inch from another. Open risers are allowed, but a 4-inch diameter sphere cannot pass through them, so I'll have to use a partial riser. So to recap, since my rise and run is fixed based on the current geometry, I won't be able to make the minimum tread width, but I'll be able to get close to it. I will be able to meet the 7 3/4 height maximum. I will also able to meet the 3/4 to 1 1/4 inch nosing, as well as the partial risers. I'm going to opt for the 2 ledgers on the side since I already have solid stringers, which will be stronger than cut stringers. So I'm just going to add the small 2x4 ledgers. And I will be able to add hangers to attach to the current rim joist. Post, I'm just going to shift them outward where they are in the handrail, reattach it, and then anchor it to the cement with some wedge bolts.